Hi everyone and welcome to Funding a Better Future. This is a new series of bite-sized episodes featuring expert insights from ClimateTech investors. My name's Cherry, I'm the founder of Above and Beyond Recruitment. We are a business that partners with ClimateTech startups and we help them to scale and grow, either by recruiting for them and by helping them build their teams, or by offering talent advisory and consulting services. And this series is aimed at founders and leaders of climate tech businesses, and particularly those that are looking to raise investment this year. We're hoping we can give you a realistic picture of what the current investment market looks like, as well as some good tips that will help give you the best chances of fundraising success, and hopefully a network of people that you can approach when the time is right for you to raise your next round. Today, on our second episode of the series, we are joined by Nadav Steinmetz from Nomea. I first came across Nadav when he spoke at a London Climate Connection event last summer, and the story he told about what inspired him to invest in climate tech really struck a chord with me and was really poignant. Back in 2020, Nadav founded Nomea, a climate tech fund focused on innovative solutions that would lead the world to carbon neutrality. He's also recently launched Climate First, an accelerator that are focused on scaling climate tech innovation in Israel. And they've just announced an investment round in Preoptima as a new company in Nomea's portfolio. So Nadav, thank you so much for joining me today. Are you happy to kick off by sharing that story that I heard at London Climate Connection that resonated?
Of course, I'm happy to, and thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
First of all, maybe it's a good time to say also thank you to Juliet, who is organizing the London Climate Connection. For those who don't know, it's a meetup for climate enthusiasts, whether you're an entrepreneur or an investor, and she's organizing really fantastic events in London. So a little bit about my personal story and why I got into climate, which I shared back then at the London Climate Connection event. Is you can probably hear from my accent, but I live in London, but I'm not English. I'm half French, half Israeli. I've lived in a few different places, but most of my childhood I lived in Israel, and I had a really beautiful and privileged upbringing, and I was lucky to live quite close to the beach with beautiful nature and trees and really a walking distance to the beach. But the unfortunate reality is that over the years, after I started to live abroad in the States for 7+ years, and I used to come back to Israel and go to where I grew up, the same places where I used to sit with my family, my siblings, my parents, literally didn't exist any longer. So there was those beautiful cliffs just above the ocean, and those places don't exist because of rising sea levels. So I had those many moments. I mean, I call them those aha moments, that this realization that we as a civilization, we have a responsibility to act. And specifically when we think about the climate crisis, we have to act, at unprecedented speed and scale, and accelerating the rate of climate innovation. I think that's an important and significant piece in the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much for sharing that. Because I think that kind of tangible, aha moment of being able to physically see the landscape changing as a result of climate change is a very poignant one. So kicking off, we're kind of asking all of our guests joining us on this series the same series of 3 questions, right? And the first one of those, I'm really keen to hear your opinion on this, is what's your opinion of the funding landscape across climate tech for 2023?
I think that what we see today in the global macroeconomic environment is quite challenging, with high inflation, high interest rates. But I think it's evident that climate tech investments and the climate tech space is much more resilient than other verticals. And there's many agencies and reputable sources that have published some numbers and results. And I think even in terms of funding to climate tech startups, are still in a better shape than other sectors. Having said that, if you ask me about the year ahead of us, 2023, I do think that it will be more challenging than previous years. We already see correction in valuations in terms of companies that we're speaking with. So I think that it's also important to say, I think for founders and entrepreneurs, not to be stuck, not to be too focused on valuations, because we see many companies that are either doing a down round right now or a flat round, and I think it's okay, especially if you see what's happening in the public markets. So this is one. The second piece is, if we focus, for example, on the UK. I think there's it's a huge hub for innovation and for climate. It's probably the second largest hub in the world for climate. So in the UK, there's over 5,200 ClimateTech startups. There's a lot of innovation. I think that the academia and the universities and institutions here are doing a fantastic job. And probably one of the biggest bottlenecks is actually funding. So a big part of the funding that goes into startups, both early and late stage companies in the UK and in Europe, comes from the States. So this is another important point to mention. But overall, I think I'm optimistic. I'm mostly optimistic because I see the unbelievable talent that is entering the climate tech space. We're talking to entrepreneurs most of the days. That's probably the thing that I'm enjoying the most to do. And I think just outstanding individuals are now looking to launch a company in the climate tech space, are looking to reduce emissions. They're impact driven, and this gives me a lot of motivation.
Yeah, and kind of with that optimism and all these founders that you're speaking to and these brilliant innovations you're seeing, are there particular parts of the sector that you're most excited about for this year, or even for Nomea that you're particularly, keen to look at investing in this year?
So there's two things. One is in terms of the stage, and the other aspect is in terms of the sector. In terms of the stage, at Nomea, we invest in early stage companies in the UK, Europe, and Israel that accelerate the transition to net zero emissions. We're primarily focused on technologies with significant decarbonization potential. I can come back to it in a few moments and explain what I mean by that. As a result also of this understanding that there's a massive opportunity in the early stage space, and by the way, even in climate, the majority of capital that goes into climate tech goes to Series A and onwards. There's a statistic that I remember, I think it was about 2021, so we need to check the numbers for 2022. But in 2021, only 2% of the venture capital investment that went into climate tech went to pre-seed and seed. So 98% of capital went to Series A and onwards. It's quite mind-blowing. So because we think that there's also a very big opportunity in the early stage space, myself and several partners have also launched a ClimateTech accelerator in Israel, focused on commercializing and scaling Israeli innovation and paving its way to global markets. So the first batch of 10 startups will begin on April 17th, very soon. They're all Israeli companies. The program is going to last for 8 weeks. And at the end of the program, and that's why I'm mentioning it, at the end of the program, the companies are going to come to the UK for a roadshow to meet with investors, business partners, and corporates. And we've really assembled an unbelievable group of people to be part of the program, whether it's as mentors, carbon experts, corporates, partners. So for those who are based here in London and are interested in meeting some of the brightest and most ambitious founders in Israel in climate, we're happy to discuss and provide more information. In terms of the sectors in climate, so as I said at the beginning, we're looking to invest in technologies with significant decarbonization potential. At Nomea, we're looking at 5 high-emitting sectors. So that's the classic ones that everybody are talking about, from manufacturing and materials to energy, to ag and food, to the built environment, and also to transportation, although I would add in parentheses that in transportation there's already certain subsectors within the area that are receiving a lot of attention and capital. So there's probably certain areas that we think that we can achieve a higher impact by investing somewhere else, like micro-mobility and other examples that are already getting enough capital. So each one of those sectors, there's many areas that are interest to us. whether you're capable of producing low carbon materials, whether you're capable of trying to decarbonize certain industrial processes. There is one bucket or one term that many use that is called hard to abate sectors, which in simple, but in simple terms, it means things in our economy that are very hard to decarbonize. And this includes heavy industry like production of cement, steel, plastic. It also includes long-haul transportation. So we're also devoting a good amount of time into looking into this.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And is there anything in particular when you're kind of assessing prospective investees, what particularly are you looking at? So obviously that first piece, which is around what is the potential to decarbonize at scale. Beyond that, what else are you particularly looking at?
We also, the most important part, and I think any investor would say that because this is the reality, is about the founding team and the people. When you invest in early stage businesses, you take into account that there's a high probability that the idea might change, the business plan might change, the go-to-market strategy might be different, the pricing, many things would be different along the way because, as we know, starting a venture, it's a lot of ups and downs, and you have to be flexible and dynamic and adapt yourself. So the team, this is the most important part. You've mentioned at the beginning the investment in Preoptima, which is, I think, we love the team. We think it's an outstanding team with complementary skill set. They've already, even though it's early stage, they already have some very good traction, and they're purpose driven. So this is an excellent example of the type of companies that we're looking to back.
Fantastic. And what advice would you particularly give any founders that are listening to this now that are looking to raise this year? What do they need to start being mindful of, focusing on, thinking about to give themselves the best chance of success in raising this year?
The one thing is to understand the global macroeconomic environment, and you have to be quite thoughtful and careful about your runway. What is your monthly burn rate? You have to probably try and fundraise for a bit more than you actually need, because there's still some uncertainty how the second half of 2023 is going to look like. But again, I don't want to sound too pessimistic. There's a lot of dry powder. VCs have raised a lot of money. There is a lot of excitement about climate, and there's very good reasons for that. But at the same time, you have to be thoughtful and understand what's happening, in the public markets and the global economy. So this is one. The second aspect is fundraising is a really challenging experience because sometimes it might take most of your energy and focus, other than actually focusing on building great products. So being a good founder, it's about also finding the right balance of executing and also speaking with investors and explaining them your value proposition. Finding that right balance, especially for first-time founders, I think it's not easy because there is also a lot of uncertainty, and you speak with 100 VCs. Sometimes only a small percentage will show some interest in taking things forward. So you have to be able to do many things at once. You have to focus on your business, on executing, on showing what you can do different than others. At an early stage, and this is also an advice that I give to founders that I speak with, I don't think you need to think too much about, financial projections, business model, what are you going to do in 5-7 years. I think it's good that you can demonstrate that type of vision and showing that you're thinking long term. But at the same time, you have to focus on today. What's your product can do better than others? How are you going to do it? Who are going to be the first customers? Why will they be able or willing to pay for that type of product or service?
That like immediate traction. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you so much. And is there anything, you mentioned about climate first, is there anything else you've got coming up that's particularly exciting that you want to share? Or is there kind of any way that people can get in touch with you or make contact with you if they'd like to talk to you further about their startup and their idea?
There's many things. We'll be announcing a few new investments at Nomea very soon. So we'll be also sharing them in the coming weeks. Some of them are actually UK companies, and it's very exciting. In terms of climate first, absolutely. We're always looking for either new mentors or corporate partners or ecosystem players who think that they can, first of all, benefit from having access to those highly promising businesses in Israel that are looking to expand to the UK, Europe, and the States. So I'm happy to have those conversations as well. You can either reach out via our website or LinkedIn. I try to make myself fairly available.
Fantastic. That's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out today to chat with me, Nadav. I really, really appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Fantastic. You too. Thank you for having me.
Take care.